Hello, welcome to the Pursuit of Excellence with me, Anthony Beirudi. Need your help real quick. If you like the videos, hit the thumbs up button right below, and please subscribe to get access to our latest interviews. Hit the subscribe button right there. Also, we'd love to hear from you about our interviews. In the comment section, tell us who you want us to interview or what you thought about the whole thing. Without further ado, enjoy the interview. All right, we're very excited to be trained by Debbie Pearmain. Thank you very much for joining us, Debbie.
Happy to be here. Happy Monday.
Fantastic. So what specifically do you do for a living?
So I work in human resources. I've been doing that for just over 20 years, but specifically the last, I'd say 15 years, really focused on things like leadership development, performance management, coaching, high performing, mental health, resiliency, all that good stuff.
Right, and that stuff at the end there is the main reason that we have you on, because I think right now, you know, I'm seeing a lot of kids kind of break down, to be honest with you, and I don't think that the system that we have in place necessarily at our public health has actually, they've thought about, oh, we can't have kids getting COVID, but they haven't thought about, well, what if they have a mental breakdown? What if they commit suicide? What if, you know, they think their life's over and they just lock themselves in a room and it spirals them out of control? So one of the things I want to touch is, how do we be proactive in finding ways to help kids be a little more resilient, to remember that things aren't actually that bad and that we will get through this?
Yeah. So resiliency is being seriously challenged with everyone, right? Not just with kids, with adults. And I think it's really important just to have that perspective. There was some research before COVID that said 20% of Canadians were struggling with mental health. And the research coming out now says that number could be as high as 50%. So I think the most important place to start is to say mental health affects all of us. And really there needs to be no stigma about that. It's no different than physical health. And if you are struggling mentally, emotionally, you know, do you even recognize if you're struggling? I think that's part of the issue, is we haven't taught our kids to recognize the signs. When my kids are sick physically, they know. They're like, I'm aching, I've got a fever, you know, my stomach feels nauseous. What does it look like when you're struggling emotionally and mentally? So that's really the first place to start, Anthony, is self-awareness. How do you know you're in struggle and distress? Well, number one, you're going to be more reactive. So your emotions are going to be more unstable. Now, that's kind of part of being a teenager too. You know, you got all these hormones coming at you. So when do you think, oh, is this really an issue or a problem, right? Is when you start to notice the signs, like the emotions, the reactivity. You mentioned withdrawal, isolation, acting out, and it will increase in frequency. So, you know, we all have bad days, myself included, since COVID, 8 months, working at home alone. I've had some bad days. We can have bad.
Can I just jump in there real quick? I don't think people really understand how terrible of an idea working at home is, and getting people to work at home all the time is. Working at home has now become this cool thing that people are doing, and it's like, you're isolating yourself. You're literally causing yourself into depression, unless you're a very rare, unique person who has the ability to persevere and overcome all these things, because you're used to going to work, you're used to a routine, right? Yeah. You're used to interacting with the people around you. You're used to all sorts of different things. That's why, like, you know, kids doing online classes to me is like one of the great, outrageous things that we're doing right now. And no disrespect to all the people who make these decisions, but I mean, what the heck are we doing? You don't go to school to learn. That's not the point of school. The school is there to interact and to learn how to learn with people in a team atmosphere, right? I mean, as an HR person, I would imagine, again, I don't do a lot of the HR at our office, but when I was, it was who can be a part of a team, who can work with others, who can help the people around them elevate themselves. And the people that can do that, we just find they figure it out anyway, right? And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're not surrounded by people, Well, how do we know you're doing any of those things?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so you've hit on so many good things. We are social animals. And there's tons of research on this. This is nothing Debbie Pearmain theory, right? There is research that shows animals that are in isolation, when they put things like heroin or cocaine into the cage, they get addicted and die. And when they put them in cages with other animals, that doesn't happen. So we are social creatures. So when you're thinking, how can we support people who are struggling? Just backing up to recognize the signs of struggle. And we've got to teach our kids. And really that starts with parents. You know, we look to the school system to be all and do everything. And that's not where it actually should be happening. So parents need to be teaching their kids, what does it look like when you're not feeling well mentally? So you lose perspective, your emotions are all over the place, your functioning starts to decrease, the duration and frequency of the symptoms increases. So you're no longer having a bad day or a bad week, Anthony. This becomes a normal, right? And that's where you need to start as kids. You need to be like self-aware. How am I doing today? Like I say to people, keep a log, like a mood log. You can download one for free. You can Google anything today, where you're literally on a daily basis checking in with yourself. How am I feeling today? When you start to recognize, wow, I'm having more bad days than good days. I'm having more sad days, angry days, right? Frustrated days. And so you look at how often you're feeling this way, and then how much is it affecting you? And as you said, if you can barely get out of bed, if you just want to isolate in your room and play video games all day, watch Netflix, like these are starting to be signs of this isn't healthy. So now what do you do? And then you kind of jump to that next place, which is we are social creatures. So you've got to be creative to find ways to connect with people. That would be absolutely number one. I know Zoom stuff, we're sick of it. We have Zoom fatigue, but it's better than nothing.
Totally.
So face to face, right? I'm saying to my kids, FaceTime people more.
You know, what's funny is I was talking to a kid yesterday who's clearly had a little bit of a meltdown, and I said, okay, you know, call somebody, talk to somebody on the phone. I said, stop listening to Sam Smith. Put that away. You can listen to that later. We need some like upbeat music.
Negative, depressing music. I mean, this is the other thing. So mindset is everything. So number one, like we go back to psychology and it says whatever's going on up here is what actually creates your feelings. So if you're feeling low and crappy, listening to music that makes you feel low and crappy is just exacerbating those feelings. So I'm like, do the opposite. Find music that's upbeat. Like it's the kind of stuff you're going to play at the warm up on the basketball court. That's what's going to elevate your serotonin. And that's what's going to get you out of bed and maybe even get you outside into nature and get some fresh air.
I mean, I ran into you on the seawall, you know,
many times.
Yeah, when this whole thing started, you know, literally like I like being successful business guy, right? And so when you go from successful business guy to $0 in revenue, you have to find ways to not go to spiral depression, which, you know, I've avoided. But, you know, not everybody has. I've talked to people in my industry, believe me, they haven't avoided it. So what do you got to do? Well, I did the seawall for 30 days in a row one time, right? And it's like, but just because I'm just like, you know, I'm not willing to fall off a cliff here. I gotta get myself going. So one of the things you said was track this stuff, you know, and see what you're doing. My thing would be on top of that, which I probably cut you off so you didn't get to say this, but after you've noticed a bad pattern, you can't let it be a snowball. You got to shut it off. And then you got to find a way to turn positive on this stuff.
Yeah. So you've got to be able, like I'm going to say, and this is so hard and I get it. When you notice, or if someone who loves you is noticing and approaches you, it's like you need to get some help and support. And again, there's no shame in that. We've got to break down this stigma that exists around people asking for help. because what I'm going to tell you from a mental health point of view, 50% of the people who are struggling ask for help. That is a real problem for me. Like if you or I were diagnosed with diabetes, would we like not go to the doctor and ask for help and just sit at home and suffer away?
Right.
So again, it's the self stigma and it's the societal stigma. So I work really hard at helping educate people to say this stuff is normal. There is 50% of the population walking around thinking and feeling the same way as you. There is nothing wrong with you. There are doctors there to help you. On the North Shore, we have an unbelievable resource called Foundry, and that is a drop-in, one-stop shop for people who are struggling with mental health that are youth. And you can literally walk into that place and you will get whatever help you need. Right. So there's doctors there, there's counselors there, they have psychiatrists.
You also mentioned that call map. You know, let's say people are out of North End. I haven't, I've looked briefly at the call map. I downloaded it, I looked at it. I thought it was some good stuff in there just to kind of get your mind on the right page and kind of think through things a little bit.
Yes. And like those, the hotlines and the crisis numbers. So again, if you don't have someone in your life who you trust, the hope is everyone has one person, best friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, right? Parent, sibling, teacher, coach, someone that they can just be like, hey, I'm feeling really shitty. I'm really
You know what? I'm sorry, I want to cut you off again. It seems to be a theme. Yeah. I just wrote a blog post on make sure you know who you're listening to, because if you're listening to the wrong people,
yes,
and they take your negative thoughts and spiral them into more negative thoughts, now all of a sudden we have a gigantic snowball problem. And so yes. what you got to be aware, you got to surround yourself with people who are positive, who are upbeat, who are elevating your mindset, who are allowing you to be a better version of yourself and a happier version of yourself. And whether it's body language, whether it's, do I stand up straight or am I crouched over? Like we're having these conversations all the time. It all matters.
It all matters. So now you've hit on another really important point. So we are social creatures. My next point is, who are you hanging out with? And that's one of the biggest things. Like, again, as a parent, we spend a lot of time with our kids on character and who they're choosing to spend time with, and making sure it's people who are adding to, not taking away from. And positivity, absolutely, because misery loves company. So when you're feeling bad and low, all you have to do is look around and see what happens very quickly, right? Kids find other kids that are feeling crappy. And then what happens is they all spiral down together. And so again, often as adults, we see this and we're like, this isn't healthy, this isn't good. Well, we need to be teaching kids to recognize that in themselves, because they want to make choices, and you want them making good choices to say, I'm not going to call that friend because that friend's going to have me go out and get drunk, or that friend's going to have me go and smoke pot. And that isn't going to help me get better. The research shows all of that makes mental health worse. Now, of course, it's a temporary fix. We know that. But in the long run, all of that negatively affects people's mental health. So what do people need to do? The focus is absolutely what you've already said. Reach out to someone, a real person, on the phone, FaceTime, meet up for a walk, meet up for a run, meet up for a hike. We live in the most gorgeous place in all of Canada. It's safe for me to say that I've lived all over Canada. And get out in nature. That changes and elevates your perspective. And there's neuroscience research on this. So again, none of this is Debbie Pearmain theory. The neuroscience shows time in nature actually calms down the nervous system. So if you're feeling anxious, the best thing you can do is go sit by the ocean or go for a walk in the woods.
Shut off your social media, to be honest with you. I think Snapchat and all this shit is honestly, it's gotten it totally out of control. And the negativity is, and you know what the other problem is? The one-sidedness of behavior is so negative. And it's like,
It's not real.
I need some redeeming stories. Somebody give me a redeeming story. Somebody give me something positive to read. You know,
Yes.
like I read a lot of stuff all day and I find myself just like, holy smokes, you know, and it's like,
So, Anthony, one of the things I did, you talked about going down to the ocean every day. I'm with you because I kept running into you. I'd grab my kids, we'd be down there. But I am going to say the other thing I did, I shut off all the news.
totally.
I was on a need to know basis, and I'm not living in like naive la la land. That's a self-protective measure.
Here's something I want to share with you. We live in Canada. We
Yeah.
don't get to vote in the US election. Get over it. We
Right.
actually just had an election and you probably didn't vote. 90% of the people posting on your social media. Okay. Like, get over it. Who
Well, the
cares?
drama, right? And think of all of just last week and the anxiety and the stress and all of that and what it does to your body and to your mind. And so, again, we need to be teaching good boundaries around social media, boundaries around the news. Like, I remember, again, thinking back when my kids were younger, they'd come home, they'd tell me stuff going on in the world that I didn't know because I'm not watching and I'm not knowing all this stuff all the time. And some of the stuff was good. I'm not saying all news is bad, but again, having conversations where I'm like, you don't need to be bombarding your 9-year-old brain with
Oh,
the worries of the world.
yeah. Well, you know what
That's
I've been doing the last couple
overwhelming.
days is I found some positive podcasts of like cool leaders that I think are cool, and I'm just starting to listen to those. Yesterday, I was listening to a Token CEO. It's called Token CEO. She's Erica Nardini. She's the CEO of Barstool Sports, and then she was interviewing Stephanie McMahon, the CEO of WWE. So it's like two positive female role models. Let me listen to these two ladies talk to each other, and it was, you know, it was kind of exciting listening to them tell stories. Yada yada. Find something positive. I mean, just go out of your way. But you have problem is you got to go out of your way to do it.
You've got to go out of your way. And even let's talk about stuff like TV and movies. So again, if you're feeling low, you're having a bad day, the stuff you should be watching on Netflix are comedies.
Totally.
Because laughing produces serotonin and endorphins.
Yeah.
But if you're like sitting and binging on this dark stuff,
Yeah.
all that's doing is feeding more darkness.
Like, by the way, Jim Carrey, kind of funny on SNL. If you want to go watch something funny, go watch some of his stuff from 20 years ago. Then you'll start laughing. You'll feel a lot better about yourself watching some Liar or Mask or some of that stuff.
Yes. So I feel like after, like, when I'm thinking of what are the hallmarks of like helping people be resilient.
Okay, yeah, let's break it down. Go ahead.
Yeah, like the first step is what we've been talking about is self-awareness.
Yeah, know you got a problem.
You can't manage if you're not aware.
You have to be aware. I have a problem.
I'm not feeling good. This has been going on for a few days. I'm crabby. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm isolating, right? I'm making bad choices. I'm eating crap. I'm wanting to drink more, like whatever that is.
You know what? Hold on a second. So you just mentioned something. We haven't talked about that. What are you eating? Okay.
Yeah.
Find some healthy things to eat, and then make sure you're drinking enough water and staying on the right you know, body length for that stuff. Make sure you're taking the right stuff. 100%. Sorry, continue.
See, the other thing you would check is your sleep. So as soon as your sleep is not going well, Anthony, that's actually a symptom. So if you go back to what does healthy look like, you're able to sleep and sleep well, you're eating healthy, you're engaging with people, you have energy, you're able to have a positive perspective on things, and you're getting out and like doing stuff you like and exercising. That's what the healthy checklist kind of looks like. So if you then recognize, I'm not doing that. And again, we all have bad days and bad weeks. But if this is becoming your norm and your new pattern, it's like, stop. I'm going down a wrong road. I need to do a U-turn.
Well, and the other thing is this, you know what? I think we have to incorporate failure into our lives a little bit, and we have to understand that it's part of the deal. You know, you're not supposed to have a great day every freaking day. You know, you're going to throw some bad days. And now what you want to do is when you have a bad day, you got to say to yourself, okay, listen, time to reload. Let's see if we can figure this out. Let's make an adjustment. You know, it's funny. I was going to tell you a quick story. I was talking to one of my good friends. He always had problems sleeping. And, you know, then we went on a basketball trip together, and at night he literally goes for a gigantic walk at the end of the night, and then he sits in front of his iPad with the lights out, and then he's drinking a can of Coke. Literally, this isn't a joke. He's literally having a bottle of Coke. I'm like, whoa, wait a second here. Like, okay, so the getting your endorphins going. Yeah, well, it also gets your blood flowing, which is not a good way to go to sleep. The pad, the bright light is actually intoxicating and it won't allow you to go to sleep. And then the pop is giving you the caffeine that's not going to even give you an opportunity to sleep. So like you need to knock off all that stuff. And then you start reading some of those things. Like one of the things, I start doing at the end of the night when I take a shower, the last, 30 seconds, cold water, because apparently if your brain is colder, as weird as this sounds, if your brain is colder, it allows your body to go to bed sooner. So little things like that. You got to find something that gets you going. And if something's not working, first thing you got to do is try something else.
This is right. And melatonin is fantastic. And listen, so many people, doctors, naturopaths I've talked to are like, 5 milligrams, 2 milligrams. It literally is just a little bit of the sleep, like the hormone to help your body go into rest. But what I'm going to say,
we're not doctors and we're not responsible.
We're not referring. No, you're right. I was
just
about to say that, but you could ask about it.
Yeah, go ask somebody. Yeah.
And here's what I'm also going to say is like the neurophysiologist. So again, like PhD in the brain body connection says no screens 2 hours before bed. I can guarantee you there is not one teenager out there who follows that rule. And even in our house, I'm like, if it's not 2 hours, at least one, like cut it in half. But you cannot be on your screens right up until bedtime. Your brain is so overstimulated that it actually impacts what's called the restorative sleep cycle. And sleep is the ingredient for every other thing in your body working properly, including hormones, right? So that's number one. You mentioned caffeine. I mean, we have a caffeine addiction going on in our society. It's normal for kids today to have 4 coffees, to have Red Bull, to have all of that.
Yeah, Red Bull's not a good idea in case anybody didn't know. Sorry.
Here's the thing. I love coffee, so I'm not anti-coffee. And I know one of the top neurophysiologists in Vancouver. His name is Dr. Swingle. He and I have conversations, and he's like, Debbie, I didn't say no coffee. He said just no coffee after 12 in the day.
Right.
So your friend who's having the Coke at dinner or the Coke at 7 at night, recipe for disaster. Okay, so sleep is the ingredient for everything. Nutrition, I mean, again,
sorry, before we get to nutrition, and then you have to wake up in the morning and go do something. So you need to sleep, and then you have to set an alarm. An alarm, and that sleep needs to end, and the world needs to get going again. Okay, so
you need a routine.
Totally. Sleep, then you're saying nutrition. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, no. And I love what you said, because routine is also the hallmark of good mental health. So when we took away all routines with kids all of a sudden being at home and online everything and no routine, a lot of kids struggled. So as parents, it's like we need to keep a routine in place. And as adults working from home, which I also have been for 8 months, needing to put a routine in place. Okay. So that's 2. Number 3, nutrition. Tons of research about nutrition and mental health. Food is medicine, right? We've heard this for centuries. You are what you eat. Like, this isn't garbage. This is truthful. There's psychologists out of the University of Alberta who have said the North American diet is one of the most unhealthy diets for people's mental health
100%.
Because it's so high in carbohydrates and processed food. Mm-hmm. So they are strongly advocating for things like nuts, right? Fish oils. You can, if you're not a fish person or you don't like animals, which a lot of people in BC, are vegetarians, vegans, pescatarians, you can, coconut oil is a really...
Go get some carrots, go get some hummus, go get some tzatziki, get some
veggies, fruit, which I know is all gross, right? Like, no kids go for that in the fridge. When I go grocery shopping, that's the stuff that's still there on Friday.
Right.
And then I open the snack cupboard, and in our house, snacks are ridiculously silly, right? It's like you just said, it's probably like hummus. Maybe there's nacho chips in there, but there's tons of nuts, and we've got some healthy granola bars, but I can tell you all that food's gone first, right? And then literally there's no other food to eat. So now the veggies will get eaten. Now the fruit will get eaten. So I'm saying to parents, set the environment up for success.
Totally.
Stop buying all that food. If the
Totally.
food's in the cupboard, it'll get eaten.
Totally.
Right? And I mean, kids don't necessarily have the money to go and buy all the junk food they want to eat.
Totally. So
So
nutrition, and then what's the next one?
yeah, and then exercise. I mean, that is a well-rested, well-nourished, well-exercised body can withstand extremely high levels of stress. So, again, challenge, I totally get challenge.
And that's a mental thought, to be honest with you. Honestly, let's finish it off with some mental thought. I can do this. I will do this. I am capable of doing this. Like I am not a fit. Like all the things that people usually say, do the opposite. Say I can, I will, we will, and then turn it into we, because you should probably have some people around you. Help find somebody that can maybe help you on your path and bring them along with you and get them going. And you drag somebody and they drag you, but drag them up, not down.
Yes. So that's always it, right? Reach out, tell someone. And here's the thing. I mean, mindset's everything. We could spend another podcast on mindset. The key thing here is every problem is solvable. Do you believe that to be true? And the other one is you, meaning you, Anthony, or whoever's listening to this, are completely capable and resourceful of doing what's needed. And I feel like, again, so many young people today have been fed messages that are the opposite of that. So when they encounter a problem, they freak out because they don't feel like they have what's inside them to handle it. And they don't feel resourceful, right? And so then they crumble. Like, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a problem, a challenge, a failure, a disappointment. What is resiliency? It's like the belief that it doesn't matter what life throws at you, you can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe you can handle it, and that every problem is solvable, and that you are resourceful,
and you can be the one to solve it.
Yeah, and you can get your needs met. And sometimes it feels like you don't know what to do. Well, that's why you need someone outside of you to help you. And that's the place of, I'm having a problem, I'm struggling to solve it on my own. I'm going to tell someone that I trust, because then I'm going to ask them to help me. And do you know, from a brain science point of view, whenever we encounter stress or problem or challenge, something called our amygdala, which is like the reptilian part of our brain, gets triggered. And it does something called emotional hijacking. And as long as you're in a state of emotional hijack, you actually cannot problem solve on your own. So that is proven through research. So doesn't that in and of itself tell you and I that if we encounter a problem, a loss, a failure, a disappointment, a challenge, and we are stressed and we are angry and we are upset, disappointed, that we actually need to talk to someone about that, because they're going to be able to offer some kind of creative idea or suggestion that our brain is not capable of thinking about because we're emotionally hijacked.
Totally.
We need each other. We need each other.
Totally.
Right?
Well, listen, I mean, we could obviously do this for the next 7 hours, but
let's do it again.
I don't think anybody needs to hear us talk for 7 hours, but I think we've
not today.
not today. I think we've taken some very good positives. I hope some stuff. I hope at least one person listens to this and says, "Oh, okay, I never thought about that," and then they make an adjustment and a change. And thank you so much for joining us.